I still remember the first Thursday I pulled my old pickup truck into the circular driveway of the Blue House on Willow Creek Lane. At the time, I was 38, divorced, and trying to rebuild a life that had fallen apart faster than I ever imagined possible. My landscaping business was barely surviving. Some weeks I counted every dollar before buying groceries. Other weeks, I wondered if I should just sell my equipment and start over somewhere else. Then came the call. A woman named Evelyn Hart needed someone to maintain her pool every Thursday. Nothing fancy. Clean the filters, balance the chemicals, skim leaves, keep everything running. Easy money. At least that's what I thought. The first thing I noticed about Evelyn was how quiet she was. She lived alone in one of the largest houses in town. But there was no sign of luxury in the way she carried herself. No designer clothes, no expensive jewelry, no fancy cars, just a woman in her early 60s who always greeted me with a warm smile and a simple, "Good morning, Daniel." Every Thursday became routine. I'd arrive at 8, she'd already be sitting on the back patio with a cup of coffee. Sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we wouldn't. But somehow, over the months, those Thursdays became the most peaceful part of my week. I learned that her husband had passed away years earlier. I learned she never had children. I learned she spent much of her time volunteering at local shelters. What I didn't learn was why she always seemed sad whenever she looked toward the empty guest house sitting at the far end of her property. One morning, nearly a year after I started working there, I finally asked, "Who's the guest house for?" For a moment, her eyes softened. Then she smiled. "Someone special." That was all she said. I didn't push. The truth is, I'd convinced myself I knew everything there was to know about Evelyn. After all, I was there every Thursday. I was the only regular visitor, the only man who ever came through the gate, or so I thought. Then one rainy Thursday changed everything. The storm had started before dawn. By the time I arrived, the pool was covered in branches and debris. I parked near the garage and headed toward the backyard. That's when I saw another vehicle, a dark van. I froze. I'd never seen it before. My first thought was that Evelyn had family visiting. But as I walked closer, I noticed something strange. The van wasn't parked near the main house. It was beside the guest house. Its side door was open, and several wheelchairs were lined up outside. I stood there confused. Then I heard laughter. Not one voice, several children. I walked around the corner, and what I saw stopped me cold. Inside the guest house were 8 children. Some sat in wheelchairs. Others used walkers. One little girl wore hearing aids. Another boy appeared to be recovering from surgery. Yet every one of them was smiling, laughing, playing games, painting pictures. And right in the middle of them sat Evelyn. She looked happier than I'd ever seen her. A teenage volunteer noticed me standing there. "Oh, you're Daniel." I blinked. "You know who I am?" She laughed. "Of course, Miss Hart talks about you all the time." That surprised me. Before I could ask more, Evelyn walked over. For a second, she looked caught off guard. Then she smiled. "I guess you found my secret." I glanced around. "What is all this?" Her eyes filled with emotion. "This is Help House." I waited. She took a slow breath. "These children come from families who can't afford temporary care during medical treatments. Some are recovering from surgeries. Some have disabilities. Some just need a safe place during difficult weeks." I stared at her. "You run this?" She nodded. "For the last 12 years. 12 years. The number stunned me. This woman had been quietly helping families for over a decade, and almost nobody knew. "Why keep it secret?" I asked. She looked toward the children. "Because it's not about me." The simplicity of her answer hit harder than any speech could have. Over the following weeks, I learned more. Every Tuesday and Thursday, children arrived at Hope House. Volunteer nurses donated time. Retired teachers helped with tutoring. Local therapists stopped by. Everything operated almost entirely through donations. And Evelyn funded most of the expenses herself. One afternoon, I accidentally overheard a conversation between her and one of the volunteers. The shelter's funding was running dangerously low. Medical equipment needed replacing. transportation costs had increased. Several grants had expired. Hope House was struggling. Yet Evelyn never mentioned it to anyone, not even me. She just kept showing up, every day, every week, giving what she could. A month later, something happened that changed my life. A little boy named Mason arrived. He was 9 years old, quiet, skinny, scared. His mother worked 2 jobs while he underwent treatment for a serious illness. The first day, he barely spoke. The second day, he sat alone. The third day, I found him watching me clean the pool. "You do this every week?" he asked. "Every Thursday." "Must get boring." I laughed. "Sometimes." For the first time, he smiled. After that, we became friends. Every Thursday, he'd come outside while I worked. We talked baseball, movies, video games, life. Little by little, the scared boy disappeared. A confident kid emerged. Watching that transformation made me realize something. Hope House wasn't just providing care. It was restoring hope, one child at a time. Then came the crisis. One Friday evening, Evelyn called me. Her voice sounded different, shaken. "Daniel, can you come over?" I arrived 20 minutes later. She was sitting at the kitchen table. Several documents lay scattered around her. Her hands trembled. "The county inspector came today." My stomach tightened. "What happened?" She swallowed. "The guest house requires major renovations to meet updated regulations." "How much?" She slid a paper toward me. The number made my heart sink. Nearly $200,000. Money she simply didn't have. Without repairs, Hope House would close within 3 months. The room fell silent. I looked at Evelyn. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked defeated. Not because of herself, because of the children. "They need this place," she whispered. I had no solution, no wealthy contacts, no miracle check, just a landscaping business and a worn-out pickup truck. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mason, about the children, about the countless lives Evelyn had touched, and I realized something. Maybe kindness didn't require wealth. Maybe it required courage. The next morning, I posted a video online. I showed the pool, the guest house, the playground, the children whose families had agreed to share their stories. Most importantly, I told Evelyn's story, the woman who had spent 12 years quietly changing lives. I expected a few shares, maybe a few donations. Instead, something incredible happened. The video exploded. People across the country watched it, shared it, commented on it. Former volunteers reappeared. Families who had once received help spoke publicly. Donations began arriving. $20, $50, $100, then thousands. A construction company offered discounted labor. An electrician volunteered his crew. A medical supplier donated equipment. Retired contractors appeared with tool belts. Entire businesses stepped forward. The community transformed overnight. But the moment I'll never forget happened 3 weeks later. The fundraising total had just passed the renovation goal. Everyone gathered at Hope House. Volunteers, families, children, donors, news crews. The backyard was packed. Evelyn stood before the crowd completely overwhelmed. Then someone called her name. She turned. An older woman stepped forward. Then another. One after another. Adults emerged from the crowd. Men and women from their 20s, 30s, and 40s. Former children, former Hope House guests, people whose lives had been changed years earlier. Some traveled hundreds of miles to be there. Many carried photographs. Others brought their own children. One woman hugged Evelyn so tightly neither could stop crying. "You saved my family," she whispered. A man standing nearby wiped tears from his eyes. "When my dad died, this place gave my mom a chance to keep working." Another added, "You helped me believe I mattered." The stories kept coming. For nearly an hour. One life after another. One act of kindness multiplied hundreds of times. I looked around and realized something extraordinary. Evelyn had spent years believing she was helping others. But she had actually built something much bigger. A family, not by blood, by compassion. Months later, the renovations were complete. Hope House reopened stronger than ever. New programs launched. More volunteers joined. More children found support. And every Thursday, I still cleaned the pool. Some things never changed. One afternoon, Mason sat beside me watching the water shimmer in the sunlight. "You know," he said, "Ms. Hart says you're the reason Hope House survived." I laughed. "No, buddy, that's not true." "It is." I shook my head. "Hope House survived because people cared." He thought about that, then smiled. "Same thing." Maybe he was right. Because in the end, the biggest lesson wasn't about a pool, or a guest house, or even a fundraiser. It was about a woman who quietly opened her heart when nobody was watching. A woman who gave without expecting recognition. A woman who proved that kindness never truly disappears. It grows, it spreads, it echoes through lives you'll never fully see. For years, I thought I was the only man Evelyn Hart let inside her world. I couldn't have been more wrong. She had been opening her doors to people who needed hope all along. And because she did, hundreds of lives were forever changed, including mine. Every Thursday, when I watch the sunlight dance across that pool, I think about how close Hope House came to disappearing. Then I hear children laughing from the guest house, and I remember that sometimes the most beautiful families aren't the ones we are born into. They're the ones built through love, sacrifice, and simple acts of kindness. The families we choose, the families we create, the families that remind us humanity is still alive, one open door at a time.